Now, the other day, I went into some detail about Kamala Harris's plan to implement price controls on groceries like they had in the old Soviet Union. At the time, it seemed like a proposal that was pretty hard to top. If you wanted to fast track the destruction of the economy, a surefire way to do it would be to have bureaucrats in Washington tell your Kroger how much to charge for bread. It's pretty much a kill shot. So I didn't think that the Harris campaign would immediately announce yet another new proposal that might do even more to push the economy towards a Great Depression. I didn't think it was possible, frankly. But it turns out that price controls are just the beginning of Kamala Harris's economic plan, if you can call it that. That's just the part of her plan that she's willing to talk about in public. Semaphore is now reporting that the Harris campaign has just secretly announced its support for an unprecedented plan to tax unrealized capital gains by high net worth individuals. In other words, she wants to tax money that these individuals haven't actually earned and which they do not possess. They're just paper gains from stocks that have increased in value, and now Kamala Harris wants to tax them. That revelation came in an analysis released on Friday by the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget, which spoke to the Kamala Harris campaign and confirmed that they endorse a series of revenue options included in the Biden administration's recent budget. And those options include a 25% minimum tax on, quote, billionaire wealth, the vast majority of which is held in unrealized capital gains. In particular, the proposal would apply to individuals worth more than $100 million. Now, it's worth emphasizing the way this was communicated. Kamala Harris didn't give a policy speech explaining why she plans to tax rich people's unrealized capital gains. She didn't release a statement explaining how it's possible or legal to tax unrealized capital gains. Instead, her campaign told the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget about the plans in a Friday news dump, hasn't spoken about it since. To give you an idea of how this would work, let's say you're Elon Musk and you own $10 million in Tesla stock. And let's say Tesla stock increases in value by 50% to $15 million. Kamala Harris's plan would allow the federal government to tax your $5 million in unrealized profit at a rate of 25%, even though you can't spend that $5 million in profit because it's still tied up in the stock. You now owe the federal government some of that money. By contrast, if your stock had declined in value by 50%, you would not get a tax credit for that drop. And if the stock value were to drop after you paid the tax on the unrealized gains, well, then tough luck. You've just lost the value of the stock plus paid a tax on money that you never had. This is a proposal that is unconstitutional, for one thing. The federal government doesn't have the power to tax something you don't have. They also don't have the power to levy direct taxes on anyone, according to Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. We only have an income tax because the 16th Amendment specifically allows for it. But a tax on unrealized gains isn't a tax on income because there's no income, just appreciation. Additionally, even if this new tax were somehow constitutional, it would still be a terrible idea. Harris's tax proposal would discourage investment in the stock market at the highest levels by encouraging wealthy investors to take their money elsewhere. That's what happened in Norway when they tried to tax unrealized capital gains. They thought they'd be getting hundreds of millions in new tax revenue, only to lose hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue because the ultra-rich fled the country, obviously. This is the exact opposite of what you'd want to happen if you were trying to ensure that people's 401k balances keep going up. We want rich people keeping their money in the market and buying more stocks because that benefits the market for everybody. We don't want them to take their money into offshore tax shelters. We don't want them selling their stocks in order to pay some massive tax so the government can waste their money. We want to encourage investment, not discourage it. Very basic concept. The other problem with this proposal is that it's obviously going to expand. Like, it's not going to stay limited to rich people. Once the federal government assumes massive new powers to tax money that people don't have, they're going to apply those new powers whenever possible. They'll start with billionaires and they'll work their way down. Anybody with a basic understanding of economics can see that the economy is in bad shape right now. I'm not saying the sky is falling, but would you jump out of a plane without a parachute? No. Well, consider this your economic parachute warning. I've been telling you for years to diversify your portfolio with precious metals. If you haven't yet, now's the time. Birch Gold makes it easy to convert your IRA or 401k into a precious metals IRA. It's a smart way to protect your hard-earned savings from the impending economic disaster. But hey, if protecting your financial future isn't motivation enough, how about this? Backed by popular demand, now through the end of the month, you can get your very own 24-karat gold-plated Truth Bomb on qualifying purchases. A little reminder of the truth bombs we here at the Daily Wire deliver every day and the smart decision you made to invest in gold. Here's what you need to do. Text Walsh to 989898. You'll get a free info kit and learn how you can get, own gold in a tax-sheltered IRA account. Let's all put our financial parachutes on before the economy takes a nosedive. Don't wait for the crash to hit. Text Walsh to 989898 now and claim your eligibility. Qualifying purchases made before August 31st can get a golden truth bomb to serve as a reminder of the great decision you made to protect your savings with gold. That's Walsh to 989898. And if you don't believe that, look at what happened with the income tax. That was passed in 1861. At the time, it only applied to people making $800 or more, which would put them in the top 3% of income earners at the time. But the income tax obviously didn't stay relegated to the top 3% for very long. Now pretty much everybody pays income tax at a much higher rate also. The same thing happened with the AMT, or the alternative minimum tax. In 1969, the Treasury Secretary told Congress that a total of 155 taxpayers who made more than $200,000 in the past year had managed to pay no federal income tax. Reportedly, the public was so outraged by this that they sent more letters to Congress complaining about these 155 taxpayers than they sent about the Vietnam War. And in response, Congress passed an additional tax, tack-on tax, that these 155 households would have to pay in addition to income tax, which included a new tax on capital gains. It was a popular proposal because most people assumed that they wouldn't be affected by it. And you probably know what happened next. By 2015, the AMT affected a lot more than 155 people. In fact, it affected more than 5 million taxpayers in 2017. And that's how many people had to pay some form of AMT. It wasn't until the Trump administration reduced that number to around 200,000, but it was still a lot higher than 155. So given this history, there's absolutely no reason to think that this new tax on unrealized capital gains is going to be restricted to wealthy individuals for very long. It's very likely that the government will quickly start going after unrealized gains that millions of Americans supposedly possess. For example, your home. Let's say you bought a home for $200,000. It's now worth $400,000. That would qualify as a $200,000 unrealized gain, even if you didn't sell it. You don't have the money. It's your home. Your home is the money. Can Kamala Harris charge you 25% of the $200,000 whenever she wants, which would bankrupt many families? Under this new proposal, she could. She could also come after your 401k directly, since there are probably a lot of unrealized gains there as well. But here's the point. Even if this proposal somehow did remain restricted to rich individuals, even if for the first time in recorded history the government decided not to expand its unprecedented new powers over the economy, then it would still be wrong. Like, the government doesn't get to steal money that people don't have. It doesn't matter if they're Elon Musk or a homeless guy on the street. Taxing phantom money is an unethical and unconstitutional and unworkable plan. We have to reject this kind of thing completely, reject it in principle. To be comprehensive about this, there are additional proposals that Harris's campaign quietly endorsed on Friday that would also help speed along the destruction of the economy. For example, Harris would also raise the corporate tax rate to 28%, marking the first hike in 40 years, a dramatic increase from the current rate of 21%, which has been in effect since 2018. She also raised some long-term capital gain tax rates to 44.6%, the highest rate since 1922. All of these proposals, combined with the price controls and the tax on unrealized gains, would put this country closer to a Great Depression than we've been since the 1920s. And the only reason the Harris campaign is doing it is that Democrats are incapable of even mentioning the actual solutions to our economic problems. Slash government spending, and slow the printing of money. Adopting those solutions would mean disappointing core constituents of the Democrat Party, including the millions of new arrivals from Central America. It would require admitting that the Biden administration made our economic outlook worse, not better, by spending nearly $1 trillion to reduce inflation. So Kamala Harris instead has endorsed a series of proposals that would turn our economy sharply towards actual collapse. And that is why Kamala Harris and her plan to tax money that does not exist are today canceled. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out The Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.